Chris O'Connor here. Join the Curmudgeon Rock Report's invite-only curmudgeonly community at facebook.com/curmudgeonrock. Also look out for a Spotify playlist that pays honor to this episode.
This is the Curmudgeon Rock Report, and this is your podcast made by rock geek iconoclastic outsiders for rock geek iconoclastic outsiders. For those of you who lament that rock music has gone the way of jazz and slipped into niche genre status, we are here to keep that flame alive by providing insight, analysis, recommendations, and honest takes, not hot takes. And hey, there's a good chance you'll learn some rock history you never knew before. Of all the great musical artists and groups that came out of the 1970s, one of the biggest selling and most popular were the Swedish pop quartet, ABBA. Two men, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus, wrote the songs. Two women and their respective wives, Annie Frid Lyngstad and Agnetha Faltskog, sang them. From 1974 through 1980, they had a titanic run of singles that hit the upper regions of the pop charts in practically every country around the world. Their eclectic brand of pop incorporated almost every facet of the 1970s pop spectrum: glam rock, lush balladry, disco, reggae, R&B, soul, funk, and even bubblegum pop. However, from the 1980s onward, even after they broke up, they've become a bit of a punchline among certain sectors of music media and hipster music fans. But yours truly, Curmudgeons, believe that that's deeply unfair. There was a crisp and sometimes even complex sophistication to the group's songcraft, as well as an underrated depth to their lyricism that made their amazing run of hit singles stand the test of time with the absolute best artists of their era, no matter what genre of music. ABBA put out many albums in their lifetime, but it's their immaculate singles that defined them, and it's those singles that we're going to break down and praise, as well as shoot down myths about the group and, in the end, meditate on their big picture legacy and influence, both musically and culturally. So, join us as we gloriously indulge in the lush, decadent, irresistible beauty of the songs of one of the greatest pop groups of all time. Welcome to our defense of ABBA, and welcome to the Curmudgeon Rock Report.
Hey, yo, Arturo.
Hey, yo, what?
What's that sound?
I hear something that's putting me in an interstellar mood.
An interstellar mood, you might say. Wow. That would be the sounds of the parallel universe where rock never dies.
And disco, too.
and disco never dies. Absolutely. We'll be talking about ABBA plenty in this episode. Yeah. But rock never dies, and it's still the thing over there. And, you know, the main stars and the people getting 2 billion downloads on Spotify are like hair metal bands and like the Who. And, you know, everything is awesome over there. And, you know, they're on the cover of the Rolling Stone. Not the Who now. Like the Who when they were in their 20s.
Yeah.
Who when they were in their 20s. Yeah. And actually there's such a thing as star rock bands in their 20s. You know, over in the parallel universe. Fancy way of saying that this is the segment of the show where Arturo and I cover new and newish artists that we think you'll dig. And this is a way that we kind of keep current and our way of sort of giving you the lay of the land as far as modern rock and roll and modern music. And so, Arturo, with that said, who are you covering in this edition of the Parallel Universe?
Hailing from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, singer-songwriter Julia Mestre is best known as being a member of the critically acclaimed and Grammy Award-winning pop rock group Ballads. As a solo artist, she released her third album earlier this year called Maravillosamente Bem, And on it, she goes full bore into late 1970s, early 1980s disco pop of the variety that was big in Brazil at that time. The title track is one of the singles off of the album, and it's as irresistible a slice of lush, creamy, decadent, sexually charged, unapologetically disco influenced dance pop as you will hear this year. That buoyant bass line, those sultry vocals, that sweeping string arrangement, even if it is most likely a Pro Tools creation, those twinkling keyboards and synths, that insanely catchy chorus where the word sexy is punctuated as breathily as possible. It's a perfect pop song to lose yourself in these troubling times. The rest of the album isn't quite as strong as this track. It's well produced and sounds great, but overall lacks the consistent songwriting and staying power that the incredible title track has. Regardless, click on that track, sit back, relax, close your eyes, and imagine you're at the sexiest, sweatiest discotheque Latin America has to offer, where you can indulge in all your fantasies. It's that transportive of a song. Chris?
Yep, absolutely. This is akin to 70s theme song music.
But sexy.
That's very sexy. Sexy time. Let's just say it's like the opening credits to an Emmanuel movie.
Oh,
yeah. It has that soft porn feel to it. But yeah, no, she's really talented, and I like what she does with her voice on this song and others, where she has that kind of faux stage whisper thing going on.
Yeah.
That kind of sultry,
Right.
sexy voice. And, like you said, the bass line is so strong, and creamy is a good way to put things too. It's a really creamy song. It's light and fluffy, and like you said, you go to a lounge, get a martini, and put this on repeat. Although you have to mix in by "Don't Tell It" by James Brown too, which is like the best lounge song ever. And this might be second best. So yeah, more power to Julia Mestre. Hopefully her albums going forward are more consistent than this one. This one gets kind of sappy at times.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, sappy and corny. So,
but the song is great.
Yeah, the song itself is great, and so that's what you live with. There you go. Now, let us pivot to something that is not 70s theme music,
and not as sexy.
and not as sexy, but it might actually be like 1985 classic rock. So kind of same era. But anyway, so what I'm covering this week on A Parallel Universe, this is a guy named Sam Fender. Those of you listening in America and most of the rest of the world probably haven't heard of this guy, but if you're in the UK, you've definitely heard of Sam Fender. He's not Parallel Universe over in Britain. He's a top-selling artist. Actually, this album that I'm covering, People Watching, get this, Arturo. When it debuted back in February, it had the best sales for the first week of any album in Britain since Harry Styles. What's that album called? Harry's House.
I can't stand Harry Styles, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, so he sold more albums than in the first week than anyone since Harry Styles. But I think that, it might be a bad sign to put those two in the same sentence, but I think that this guy deserves more props in the rest of the world. So yeah, let us cover Sam Fender and his album People Watching, which I think is very, very good, very strong. And so let's go here. It's that time of year, folks. We have ourselves a Mercury Prize winner in the UK. This is considered one of the most prestigious honors bestowed upon a British artist every year. Primal Scream Screamadelica won the first one back in the early 1990s. And artists like Portishead, PJ Harvey, Arctic Monkeys, and Franz Ferdinand have won the prize over the years. Lately, though, The selections of the British music intelligentsia that vote on this thing have been in a bit of a slump.
Yes,
Albums,
since the late noughties, all their choices have sucked.
well, not all of them,
Most,
as we'll
okay.
see, but albums from recent winners like Dave, Arlo Parks, Little Sims, and English Teacher have been flawed, and the momentum the prize is supposed to produce has not materialized to the point where it might as well be a curse to win the thing. Now, let me point out that I actually covered albums by Little Sims and English Teacher, those winners on the podcast. I regret English Teacher. Little Sims was better than a lot of people think, so I'll stick to my guns on those. But anyway, something tells me, though, that the curse may actually break this year. We have a really good album in the winner's circle this year, and lo and behold, he's actually one of the more popular rock artists in the United Kingdom these days. Sam Fender is a 31-year-old singer-songwriter from Northern England with a Geordie accent who crafts grand arena-ready rockers and hard-boiled yet soulful confessional pop. Like a lot of young artists these days, he draws inspiration from Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, Coldplay, and younger peers like the War on Drugs and Kurt Vile. Fender's album People Watching, co-produced by Fender, Coldplay collaborator Marcus Draves, and War on Drugs frontman Adam Granduciel, debuted at #1 on the UK Albums Chart back in February. While its sound and production are rich and soar triumphantly, the album's lyrics and themes are quite dark and oddly compelling. Fender has some early adulthood existential shit to work out as he ages out of his youth support system, and he also has an eye for the downtrodden and weary folks in his midst. Fender is trying his best to maintain hope, but he's not always succeeding here. What results is a solid 11-song, 48-minute song cycle that serves as a journey through Fender's psyche. Highlights from People Watching include the tight, pretty, 12-string guitar-driven Nostalgia's Lie, where he longs for the good old days but isn't exactly sure why. There's Arm's Length, another mid-tempo, finely crafted radio-ready pop song in which Fender expresses reservation about letting a new lover in too close. Crumbling Empire, which is a purely Springsteenian exercise in empathizing with the struggling urban dwellers, but one that's surprisingly soulful and affecting. There's the cinematic ballad TV Dinner, on which piano and synth notes propel Fender into a screed about his growing sense of alienation. There's Something's Heavy, an engaging rocker about trying to make connections among a crowd of broken people, which features a surprisingly cool little saxophone solo, and album closer Remember My Name, a gorgeous near dirge with full horn arrangement that finds Fender struggling with grief and loss. This here is probably the best and intimate and plainly the best song on the album. Sam Fender is already a star in Great Britain, and with talent like this, he may just find similar success on this side of the pond in the coming years. His influences may be obvious, but his songwriting blends those components in a wholly absorbing way, and on People Watching, he's clever enough to mix things up just enough to keep things interesting, tuneful, and cohesive. Here's rooting for Sam Fender to break the curse of the Mercury Prize and to flourish greatly. Arturo, your thoughts?
This album barely registers 3 out of 5 stars for me. There are a couple of great songs. The title track, which was a huge hit in the UK late last year, went to #4. The title track is really good. Why is it good? Because it sounds like the War on Drugs. Why does it sound like the War on Drugs? Because it was produced by Adam Granduciel. Arm's Length is another really good track. I like that one quite a bit.
Yeah.
It really is different from the rest of the songs on the album. It was also a pretty big hit in the UK. Went top 20. There's like 1 or 2 other songs that are okay. But for the most part, to me, like 50 to 60% of this album It's just like the Bruce Springsteen influence whittled down to like conservative, bland yacht rock. That's what it sounds like to me, for the most part. Although he has his moments of being really good, some really interesting lyricism. He has some songs where like the lyrics are really good, but the music is way too cheesy. In that 80s yacht rock meets heartland rock kind of way. I think he
Yeah.
needs a collaborator, and I think he needs a better producer. Maybe not one of his favorite band's lead singers to produce him. Someone
Yeah.
that'll actually challenge him and get him out of his comfort zone. I think is what Sam Fender needs, and hopefully he does that with the next album. So yeah, he doesn't resolutely suck like most of the Mercury Prize winners of the past 15 years, but he's okay.
Chris here again. We usually end our episodes by inviting you to join our Curmudgeonly community page on Facebook. Well, we're picking up our efforts there. Know people just as passionate as us about rock and roll? Invite them to join in the fun. You don't actually need our permission to do so. Also, expect to see a lot more content up there moving forward. Our mission is to engage you, so darn it, we'll engage you like a fire hose. Or maybe like a firehouse, if we're going to give love to Gene Simmons. We may also be making a few offers. Want to wear a t-shirt featuring our logo? You may have that opportunity soon. So be a fellow curmudgeon, help us expand our little community, and share your own musings via your own posts. We're at facebook.com/groups/curmudgeonrock.
So, why are we defending ABBA? You might think they're so popular. So many people love them. Why do they need defending? Well, Chris, you're going to provide us with a series of quotes by several people in music media and music critics throughout the years who have been a bit snarky toward ABBA, haven't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of encapsulates. There's a Pitchfork essay, not really defending ABBA so much as damning with faint praise and being a
Yep.
little bit, and being a little bit, kind of like sarcastic, I guess you can say. And so, quoting from that, the author says, "Everybody knows how they feel about ABBA. You love it, you hate it, you tolerate it, you require it only sometimes and then demand it. You drink it like champagne, only at parties, or you breathe it privately like old perfume on left behind clothing. But there is no doubt that you get it. Where taste is generally understood to help us form a cultural identity, the act of loving or hating ABBA signifies little and comes so naturally that it barely counts as an opinion. At an irresponsibly young age, we make the call or on whether or not we are ABBA people, and so one way or another we take them for granted. In adulthood, the only way to reassess ABBA, is by a kind of reinvention, to reckon with yourself in such a way that other previously held beliefs become suspect too." Which is a way to say, yeah, that's basically a way of calling them bland.
Yeah, really is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're better than that.
Yeah.
They're better than bland.
Yeah, they are. And so, hearkening back to the '70s when their music first went worldwide, and the snobs at the music magazines first got a hold of them. And so, here's a few fun quotes from the critic Ken Tucker, really good critic most of the time, but this was from his review of ABBA's album Arrival. Quote, "Even more than their three previous American releases, Arrival is Muzak mesmerizing in its modality. By reducing their already vapid lyrics to utter irrelevance, lead singers Ani Fried, Lingstad, and Agnetha Faltskog are liberated to matter on in their shrill voices without regard to emotion or expression, and the language barrier is broken."
That's such bullshit. I mean, their lyrics are actually a lot better and smarter
Yeah.
than people give them credit for. And
Yeah, I
here's the
agree.
thing, they're from Sweden. Everyone from Sweden speaks English fluently. They speak English better than half of the American population. So fuck Ken Tucker.
Yeah. And then from Stephen Holden, one of my favorite critics of all time, he has a nice little barb here that kind of, which is really funny. Quote, ultimately, though, ABBA are as expendable as they are exportable. In treating pop music as a computer game, they're Sweden's answer to Space Invaders. Yeah.
See, if that's the case, and why have their songs endured for like multiple generations?
Yeah,
Ensuing
kind of.
generations?
Well, Space Invaders has endured too.
Has it?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of has, you know. I mean, it's still around, you know. Anybody with an emulator can
Yeah,
get
but I
Space
mean, but
Invaders.
ABBA's songs have been better than that. Like you have people
Yeah,
in their 30s and their 20s, going
in
to
their
see the Mamma
teens.
Mia musical and singing along to the songs.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
you know.
Yep, absolutely. And now here is a string of quotes from this podcast's favorite critic, Robert Christgau, getting it wrong, but doing it gloriously and nastily. So a series of three quotes from his consumer guide. First off is the first greatest hits album that ABBA released in 1976. Thus saith Bob Christgau, quote, although four of these songs have gone top 20 here, the title commemorates the band's conquest of such places as West Germany and Costa Rica, where ABBA's Europop is the biggest thing since the Beazamons. Americans with an attraction to vacuums, late capitalism, and satellite TV adduce Phil Spector and the Brill Building Book of Hooks in ABBA's defense, but the band's real tradition is the advertising jingle, and I'm sure that their disinclination to sing like Negroes reinsures the Euro populi.
He's using the word Negroes, for fuck's sake.
Yeah. Pervasive airplay might transform what is now a nagging annoyance into an oral totem. It might also transform it into an ashtray. God bless America. We're not likely to find out which. C plus. So
Well, it's not an F.
yeah, but I do like that line that Europeans do have a disinclination to sing like Euros, and they reassure the Euro populi. Geesh, Bob, get a little racist on us.
I know, right?
Anyway, his consumer review guide of Arrival, or his review of Arrival. Since this is already the best-selling group in the universe, I finally have an answer when people ask me to name the next big thing. What I wonder is how we can head them off at the airport. Plan A, offer Bjorn and Benny the leads in Beatlemania. How could they resist the honor? And replace them with John Phillips and Denny Doherty of the Mamas and Papas. Plan B, appoint Bjorn head of the UN and Benny his pilot, or vice versa, and replace them with John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Plan C, overexpose them in singing commercials. Plan D, institute democratic socialism in their native land so that their money lust will meet with the scorn of their fellow citizens. C. Ouch.
Doesn't Sweden already have democratic socialism? Didn't they have it even back then?
Well, I mean, it's closer now, but it's Norway is definitely democratic socialist.
Right.
Sweden might be close, but there you go. Nasty stuff. And then finally, his review of Greatest Hits Volume 2. Yeah, this was a band that had so many catchy earworms that they released two Greatest Hits albums in the first 5 years, basically in their first 5 years of releasing albums. But anyway, here's Christgau on Greatest Hits Volume 2. Quote, 14 cuts, close to an hour of polyvinyl chloride, and only 2 of them made the U.S. top 10. We have met the enemy, and they are them. See. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but they top 10, but a bunch of them made top 20, so that's good enough, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, the ABBA's, we're going to talk about it later, but their popularity has outlasted many of their peers of the 1970s, and by a wide margin, I might add.
Yeah.
So to the point that America, like, 20, 30, 40 years later, they've come around to ABBA, just like they've come around to Oasis, who are
Yeah.
really big around the world in the 1990s, but not as big in the States. Guess what? Sold out stadiums all over North America.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Couple more quotes, and then we'll get into the next thing. So this is from a BBC.com article, and this was kind of they weren't necessarily all that popular among the other Swedish bands, and they took a lot of crap for
jealousy, a lot of jealousy,
being a little saccharine. And so here was the quote. We were the upset generation, explains Michael Wehay, singer with the Swedish group the Hula Bandula Band. Quote, we were upset about the apartheid system. We were upset about the military coups in Latin America. We were upset about the wars in Southeast Asia. And we were upset that ABBA were not upset.
Well, at least he's honest.
Yep. And then you get the truly unfiltered fan board perspective. This is from a website called Rock Town Hall, which is basically like a message board, Reddit blog kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the headline from this one guy, I believe he goes by Harundi Bakshi, at least that's his handle. Will somebody please call bullshit on ABBA? And it says, quote, sorry for the hit and run, but I got shit to do today. I just want to go on record as saying that the ABBA revisionism of the last couple of decades, this notion that Bjorn and Benny, or whatever their names were flawless practitioners of high pop craftsmanship, is utter horseshit. Most of their stuff was aggravating, stupid, overproduced, and a blight on AM pop radio when it was released. And nothing has changed in the last 30 years as far as I can see. It still sucks. Actually, I take that back. It doesn't all suck. ABBA, in fact, did deliver 2 great pop songs in Waterloo and Dancing Queen, and one pretty good one in Does Your Mother Know? But the rest of the catalog, absolute crap. Fernando, crap. Money, 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 total crap. Take a Chance on Me, unbelievable crap. The Winner Takes It All, give me a fucking break. What kind of right-thinking adult still listens to this shit? Jeesh. End quote.
A blight on AM radio. What does he think is good AM radio? I shudder to think what crap this guy thinks is good AM radio.
Yeah, so basically, the sheen was so sheeny with ABBA that there's a certain type of person that likes their rock a lot less sheeny, and the sheen causes them not to really listen.
Well, I'm usually that kind of guy, but with ABBA, to me, they're one of the few exceptions, because their song, I just go by the singles. I'm pretty sure their albums are not that great, but it's their singles, and they're all about the singles. ABBA's all about the singles, and their singles were perfect. That's what they focused on,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so therein ends the roll call of great disses and damnings with faint praises of ABBA.
Yeah. All right. Now let's get into the myths. 5 myths about ABBA. Okay. And we're going to debunk them. All right. First one. Their songs were lyrically shallow and lacked emotional depth. If you aren't the kind of music listener who listens to lyrics, you would think this. But those of us who do, unlike that last reviewer that Chris just mentioned, the guy with the fake Indian name, those of us who do listen to lyrics know the truth, and that's the fact that the heartbreak, the sense of loss, the yearning that often went beyond simple romantic tropes, and yes, the emotional heft of their best songs is what connected ABBA to so many music listeners, both of the normie kind and music connoisseurs. Frankly, they wouldn't have gotten so big if they never had this level of depth. Knowing Me, Knowing You, and The Winner Takes It All, especially Knowing Me, Knowing You, is one of the most devastating pop songs about divorce ever written. Fernando, or at least the English language version as written by Bjorn Ulvaeus, is a vivid and subtly powerful account of two old war veterans of the Mexican Revolution reminiscing about their war trauma. Waterloo belies its musically bouncy buoyance with your classic love kills admission, where the narrator acknowledges the person she's in love with and the relationship she's about to enter will be the emotional end of her. The love story that warns you about the tragic end. That's what Waterloo is. Even Dancing Queen, with its seemingly blissful portrait of a young adult woman losing herself to the dance floor and the time of her life, is pushed along by the wistful melancholy in the melody, with the unspoken implication that the good times for this young woman are not going to last. The baby boomer generation became full-on adults in the 1970s, and the disillusionment many of them felt after the idealism of the 1960s was easily reflected in the sentiment of many of ABBA's best songs, which warned that what lay ahead at the end of the beautiful rainbow was something a lot sadder and more somber. Like that Swedish musician said that you mentioned, Chris. We were upset. ABBA were not upset. Well, they were. It was just more subtle. Chris?
Yeah. Absolutely. So you mentioned a lot of their best songs, and a lot of where I was going to say that the depth, I mean, the sort of the emotional complexity of what they were doing is that they had these like really pretty, really lovely and really joyous choruses that were really expounding on some pretty maudlin stuff and some pretty, a lot of desperation, a lot of grief, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of yearning, a lot of stuff like that. And not only that, but also a lot of empathy, that their character songs were really strong. Like Chiquitita was really, really good, in terms of empathy for this woman and her situation and being that friend and being that listener. I mean, just really, really kind of touching. Yeah. And, Fernando is the same kind of thing, like I said, the reminiscing of the old war heroes, just, really, really cool. So yeah, no, they were actually really good. And you got to remember, English was their second language.
Like I said, they're Swedish. English is officially might as well be a 1A language there. And like I said, their English is as good as some British people and better than half of Americans. Maybe most Americans by now.
Yeah, and you got to remember, like they, all four members of this band had success in the 60s and early 70s in the Swedish music scenes, singing songs in Swedish.
Yeah.
So they were Swedish language successes, not big stars, but they were well known and popular in Sweden.
Sure.
And so, it carries over. So that's pretty impressive to me.
Myth number 2. Their songs were musically simple, disposable pop, lacking in sophistication. This is just hater bullshit. There was a surprising amount of complexity in Benny Andersson's and Bjorn Ulvaeus' compositions, especially in their melodic construction, lush harmonies, multi-section songs, and unusual arrangements that tip their collective hat to classical music and even progressive rock. Listen to SOS with its sparkling piano intro and very Rick Wakeman-esque synthesizer flourishes, all augmented by a thick, multi-layered production inspired by Phil Spector's famous Wall of Sound and a chord progression and song structure wonderfully inspired by Brian Wilson. Listen to the lush, glistening flow of Dancing Queen, a song that moves like water with its melancholy, epic, almost cinematic sweep and classical music-inspired piano punctuations. Listen to the beautiful, complex, in a good way, construction of Take a Chance on Me, with its multiple bridges and densely layered arrangements. Listen to the exquisite Chiquitita, with its obvious debt to Latin folk music of the Peruvian variety. The song was allegedly influenced by Simon and Garfunkel's version of El Condor Pasa, that all of a sudden becomes vintage ABBA with its soaring, emotionally drenched chorus. Listen to Mamma Mia and marvel at the absolute perfection of its hook after hook orgy, its chord progression, how the verse melody effortlessly blends into the chorus melody, and how the bridge may actually be catchier than anything else in the song, which is saying something. Make no mistake, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus were all, for intents and purposes, the Swedish answer to Lennon and McCartney. Chris?
Yeah, that's a good call. I think that the people that make this complaint about this being disposable pop lacking in sophistication are the ones that aren't really listening, and they certainly were not wearing headphones. ABBA is surprisingly one of the best headphone bands ever. There's a lot going on in their songs. They're maximal, they're textured. They made really great use of acoustic guitar, especially, and piano, but especially acoustic guitar to kind of give a rhythmic backbone to their songs and to kind of deepen, the sonic landscape that they were making. They got orchestral quite often, and the vocal overdubs gave a richness and a weird warmth to the performances. And so there's real craftsmanship to the writing and to the melodies that they came up with, and how they employed the overdubs and how they constructed the songs, by doing the basic acoustic guitar, drum, bass, and then just building layers on top of it. It's pretty extraordinary what they accomplished.
Yeah. Number 3, Agnetha Faltskog and Anni Frid Lyngstad couldn't sing. You have to have a heart of stone to not be moved by the beautiful, yearning voices of both women in ABBA. Andersson and Ulvaeus wrote their songs for maximal, cathartic, visceral pop impact, and you need to have singers with pipes who could deliver those Herculean choruses. Lyngstad could do that, but Faltskog really could do that. And their heavenly harmonies really push those perfectly crafted songs over the top into immortality. I mentioned earlier about the inherent sadness and melancholy in ABBA's songs. One thing is writing them. Another thing is vocally delivering them. And Agnetha Faltskog's beautiful voice always stopped short of schmaltz and histrionics. Always stopped short of those things, imbuing the subtle sadness of ABBA's best songs with a swelling emotionality that avoided sentimentality. In this sense, I've always put her on par with Karen Carpenter, the other woman who defined genius sad songs in 1970s pop. Chris?
Yeah. So these ladies weren't Diana Ross and Barbara Streisand, but you know what? So the fuck what? They sang with passion and with joy, and they really, like you said, they were interpreters of the emotional filament of these songs by Benny and Bjorn. Listen to Fernando and Chiquitita, and then The Winner Takes It All, which are all, especially The Winner Takes It All, is an extraordinary performance by Agnetha Faltskog. And then you got Knowing Me, Knowing You, and Lyngstad had a lower register, but she had this kind of smoky voice, and the way that she captures that, which is like kind of an R&B diss. It's like an R&B divorce song. They could get sultry, and they could express sadness, and they could put together a really strong 2-part harmony. And then, not just the 2-part harmony, but then you overdub it like 10 times. And so it becomes this extraordinary. Their voices, they were kind of like the female queen. With how they were placed on record. It was really cool.
Yeah. Number 4, their stage presence, their on-stage presence and choreography was hokey and corny. This myth deserves an asterisk because it's kind of true. But here's the thing. All pop groups of the 1970s had hokey and corny stage presentations. It was the 70s, man. Donnie and Marie Osmond, the Bay City Rollers, Tony Orlando and Dawn, the fucking Village People. Most of the disco acts, in fact. And none of those artists... Yeah, and Elton John. And none of those artists and groups, well, except for Elton John, had songs that were half as good as ABBA's. A big so what to that myth. Chris?
Yeah, but you got to remember, they were putting on a show.
Yeah.
So, and if you put on a show, you put on a goddamn show. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, so yeah, they wore matching garish clothing. They had their little spin moves. They had the big cheesy smiles. You
No
know,
one, no one criticizes the Motown acts for doing that.
yeah, yeah. Well, because they did it with a little bit more athleticism. You know, I mean, these are just really happy. Uh, these are people that are delighted to be performing to big crowds.
Yeah.
And these folks were entertainers. You could tell, like, you watch YouTube clips of their old performances. All four of them just loved performing, and they invited their audience into their escapist haven
Yeah.
for the night. And yeah, some of the outfits were really funny, like shiny, frilly, over the top, like really garish, like the big sleeves, and the dresses, were pretty well fitting. I mean, the girls looked good in the dresses, uh, but it was all, there was a lot of Broadway to ABBA
Sure.
too. You got to admit, I mean, there's
Sure.
there's a reason that Mamma Mia, like that was one of the first jukebox musicals. There's a
Yeah.
reason why ABBA translated so well to Broadway because they were practically doing like pop song Broadway
Yeah.
and their outfits, they it was theater. It was rock and roll theater, and they put it
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And finally, number five, they were of their era and didn't influence artists beyond their era. Let's see, shall we? Madonna sampled Gimme 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 in her 2005 song Hung Up. Lady Gaga's Vanish Into You is basically a stylistic vamp on everything ABBA ever did. Erasure once released an all ABBA covers album. The piano intro to Elvis Costello's song Oliver's Army was explicitly inspired by ABBA's Dancing Queen, something Costello's keyboardist Steve Nye readily admitted. Costello himself, for that matter, listed the compilation album ABBA Gold on his list of essential albums. Kylie Minogue, Dua Lipa, U2, Coldplay, Taylor Swift, Britney Spears, Katy Perry all have publicly stated the influence ABBA had on their music. And of course, there's the multi-decade long ongoing smash musical Mamma Mia that you just mentioned, Chris, based on the music of ABBA, obviously, that has traveled to multiple countries around the globe. Yeah, you can debunk that myth. Chris?
Yeah, totally. And three names that you left off, but are pretty important. Producer Max Martin,
Oh,
who is most famous for working with Britney Spears and the Backstreet Boys back in the early '90s. He also was behind Ace of Base. He wrote some songs for Bon Jovi. He clearly was of
yeah,
the pop craftsmanship school. And he also wrote "Since You've Been Gone" for Kelly Clarkson.
right.
Just really solid, dramatic, just well crafted, well melodic songs. So Max Martin is definitely an acolyte of ABBA's. The dance rock goddess Robin,
Okay.
who is one of the best artists of any genre of this entire century, and has one of the best songs of the century in "Dancing on My Own," is all about that ABBA. And Charlie XCX is all about that ABBA too. That kind of dance pop that she does. I think is very rooted in an ABBA tradition. So yeah, the whole lot of ABBA influence here in 2025, and over the last 45 years since, or 43 years or whatever it is since ABBA broke up. It's just all over the friggin' place.
On this episode, we defended the greatness and musical legacy of ABBA. For the next episode, we're going back to the subterranean depths of underground indie rock and put a spotlight on one of the most enduring American bands of the last 30 years, one that has garnered a formidable and sneakily growing cult fan base with their restless and relentless creativity and consistency. The Brian Jonestown Massacre. They've made a career out of taking 1960s rock and roll, particularly folk rock, garage rock, and psychedelia, and recontextualizing them in the paradigms of 1980s shoegazer rock, 1990s electronica and techno, and 2000s indie rock. In fact, you can argue that in a parallel universe where rock music is still a mainstream pop cultural force, Anton Newcombe and his revolving cast of characters would be iconic arena fillers on the level of Foo Fighters or the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Join us next time as the Curmudgeon Rock Report cherry pick and analyze the very best albums of the band's long, dense discography to bring you Parallel Universe All-Stars present The Brian Jonestown Massacre. All right, now let's quickly delve into ABBA's origin story before we go into the lightning round of their greatest singles. The origin story of ABBA is a long, winding road of happenstance and seized-upon opportunity, with each of the four members reaching varying degrees of success before they all got together and conquered the world. Let's start with Agnetha Faltskog. As a teenager in the 1960s, she sang in a local dance band in her hometown of Jönköping, Sweden, before a demo tape made by the band leader of that band, of Faltskog's band, singing one of her own songs, was sent to former pop star Carl Gerhard Lundqvist. Lundqvist was impressed enough with her voice and, yes, her songwriting, believe it or not, that he thought she could be a star and brought her to Stockholm to hook her up with a record deal. At the age of 18, she had a #1 hit song in Sweden, and she soon became a renowned singer of Schlager-style songs. If you don't know what Schlager is, it's basically cheesy drinking German songs, what Germans sing in their hofs. She recorded a mix of her own songs and hit songs by foreign acts, resulting in her having a number of hit songs on Sweden's pop chart, as well as 4 solo albums between 1968 and 71. With Benny Andersson, a Stockholm native, became a genuine pop star at the age of 18 with the pop rock group he was in, the Hepstars. They became big stars in Sweden in the mid-1960s, playing covers of international hits. As a hint of what was to come, Andersson soon became the group's main songwriter and provided the Hepstars with a string of #1 hits in Sweden. They were actually really popular. Andersson met Björn Ulvaeus, a native of Gothenburg, Sweden, in 1966. Ulvaeus was in a folk skiffle group called the Hootenanny Singers, and as we all know, that style had become pretty archaic by the middle of the 1960s. They forged a friendship and decided to form a songwriting partnership urged by Stig Andersson, the Hootenanny Singers manager and owner of the record label Polar Music. It wasn't until 1969 that the duo hit pay dirt, with songs that they wrote becoming hits for other singers and groups in Sweden. Annie Frid Lyngstad was actually from Norway. She sang in various dance bands and jazz-based cabaret groups before moving to Sweden in her early 20s. She won a national talent competition that earned a record deal with the Swedish arm of EMI Records. She released several singles with various degrees of success. While she briefly met Ulvaeus at a talent contest in 1963 and Faltskog at a TV show taping in 68, it was when she met Andersson at the 1969 Melodifestivalen that the machinations that would create ABBA started to stir. The Melodifestivalen was a national music contest, I don't know if it still exists, I don't think so, that determined the Swedish entry for the Eurovision Song Contest. Lyngstad and Ulvaeus soon became a couple. Lyngstad and Andersson, my mistake, soon became a couple after that. It was an eventful year because 69 was also when Faltskog met Ulvaeus at a Swedish TV special, and they soon became a couple, getting married 2 years later. However, it was during this first year of romantic bliss that the members of each couple would start showing up at each other's recording sessions for Lyngstad and Faltskog's solo records, and for Ulvaeus and Andersson's respective group recordings. In spring 1970, both couples took a vacation together to the island of Cyprus, and it was there, performing for the United Nations soldiers stationed on the island, that the quartet formed an act called Festfolket, which from Swedish translates to party people. They launched as a touring cabaret act in fall of that year to mostly negative reviews, so the members briefly went back to their individual projects. Yet in early 1971, something curious happened. A recording the quartet made called Hey Gamle Man, Hey Old Man in English, about an old Salvation Army soldier became a huge hit in Sweden, although it was credited to Bjorn and Benny rather than the four of them. The group got back together as a touring act throughout 71, releasing several more singles with Lyngstad's and Faltskog's vocals being featured more. Their singles achieved moderate success, but they nonetheless persuaded Stig Anderson, Ulvaeus and Anderson's manager, to keep the idea of the quartet in the back of his mind. In 1972, the duo known as Bjorn and Benny started to have hits with their own songs in Sweden, as well as Japan. This didn't stop Anderson and Ulvaeus from trying to feature their wives/girlfriends. Lyngstad and Anderson had yet to get married at this point. And they still kept trying to feature them as lead singers, though. They finally broke through when the quartet named Bjorn and Benny, Agnetha and Annie Fried, that was the name of the group.
That's original.
Had a Swedish top 20 hit with People Need Love. It also became a moderate hit in the US and throughout Europe. In late 72, Bjorn and Benny, Agnetha and Annie Fried, as they were known then, recorded a song they hoped would win the Melodifestivalen and make it to the 1973 Eurovision Song Contest. This song, Ring Ring, didn't make the cut but came really close. However, it was a huge hit throughout Europe as well as South Africa. Something was definitely brewing for the aspiring group. Stig Anderson, at this point the manager of the whole quartet, wisely decided that the group's name was a little too long. In public and in music media circles, he started referring to the group as the acronym ABBA, meaning Agnetha, Bjorn, Benny, Annie Fried. It was decided that that would be the group's name, emboldened by the results of a competition in a Gothenburg newspaper surveying readers. But, there was a sticking point. ABBA also happened to be the name of a popular canned fish company in Sweden. Fortunately, the manager and group negotiated the rights of the name, and in the fall of 73, ABBA was officially born as ABBA. In the Melodifestivalen of that year, which was to decide the Swedish entry for the 1974 Eurovision Song Contest, ABBA submitted a song greatly influenced by the British glam rock movement of the time, characterized by David Bowie and T-Rex. The song, Waterloo, not only won the Melodifestivalen, but also won the Eurovision contest, instantly making ABBA into stars. The song itself was a commercial monster, hitting number 1 in 9 different European countries, as well as the top 10 in the UK, Canada, the US, Australia, Germany, Spain, and France. The legend of ABBA was born. And that's one hell of an origin story. Hey, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. So two things here. So ABBA is essentially Sweden's version of Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Where you had 4 people that had successful careers going, that through their through friendships and figuring out that they had chemistry, and then of course obviously you had 2 couples, and so So essentially, they're
Crosby, Stills, and Nash weren't couples with each other.
Yeah, no, I was going to say it wasn't Brokeback Mountain. but what I'm saying is, in ABBA's case, just the fact that you had 2 couples, essentially their earliest efforts were double dates.
Yeah.
Let's get together and make some music, and and let's swap ideas. Hey, you want to sing on this song, and that kind of stuff, and So there's that. And so, the fact that they had their success and came together for something greater is a really interesting story. And then the other cool thing about this origin story too, it's not really the same thing. It's, you had these competitions. It's not American Idol.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about original bands doing original songs.
Yeah, unlike American Idol, these aren't people off the street. These are actual professional musicians and songwriters.
Yeah. Well, but then again, not like Kelly Clarkson was just some person off the street, or like Carrie Underwood. I mean, you had some talent on American Idol, but it was basically this competition, and that's what drove them to write better and better songs. They wanted to write the best song possible so that they could get out of Sweden and win the entire Eurovision, and that's how you get Waterloo is because they were trying to win trophies. That's it's just kind of remarkable to me. And so, I guess in a way, when people say, like when Chris Gow says they wrote advertising jingles, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah. Well, some advertising jingles are catchy.
I want to teach the world to sing.
Yeah. Hello, Oasis, shaker maker.
Yeah. Yeah. So it really, really is kind of a fascinating thing. And then the fact that you had, and then they were kind of like the Swedish Fleetwood Mac, where you had two
they
married,
all broke up.
two married couples. And and by the end of ABBA's run, they were all divorced. So so there's that. A lot of good stuff.
All right, now the sparkling run of singles of ABBA, one of the greatest, if not the greatest pop group of the 1970s. Here we go. Waterloo, 1974. We're doing this lightning round style. The song that won the 1974 Eurovision contest is also the song that became their worldwide breakthrough hit. It was a good idea to introduce themselves to the world with the glam rock style that was big at the time. And even the lyrics showed the subtle cleverness and depth that they would be underrated for. By comparing her romantic relationship to Napoleon's fall at Waterloo, the narrator is acknowledging that this relationship is going to be a bad one that's going to hurt her, but she's resigned to that fate because of how in love she is. The dark anguish and melancholy that's at the heart of the best ABBA songs is already present in this opening salvo. Chris?
Yeah, this song is very T-Rex, for sure. And, it's no wonder, like we talk about Mamma Mia. I mean, this band was, that was at the very beginning of the jukebox musical movement.
Yeah, sure.
And wouldn't it make sense that ABBA would be like one of the first bands out of the gate for that whole thing? Right. Because, their songs, lots of love, lots of infatuation, lots of obsession, lots of heartbreak, lots of desperation, lots of joy, and lots of solemnity. But here on this song, it's really basically a really groovy piano jam. There's just a joyous bop. There's claps literally in the mix, and there's saxophone way down in the mix and piano way up in the mix, which is kind of a weird effect. And it just really kind of that twisted concept. I mean, you get a load of this lyric. My, I tried to hold you back, but you were stronger. Oh, yeah, and now it seems my only chance is giving up the fight. And how could I ever refuse? I feel like I win when I lose. Waterloo, I was defeated. You won the war. Waterloo, promised to love you forevermore. That just sounds like emotional abuse, right?
Yeah, it does. ABBA's lyrics were way more subtle than than their haters gave them credit for. And that's why I say about the English language thing. Benny and Bjorn spoke English better. Half of the Americans that are out there, they spoke English as well as anyone. They knew the nuances and the subtleties of the English language. They really, really did. And people who dismiss them, they go, the language barrier. No, that's just lazy journalism. They're not really listening. All right. Next, Honey Honey from 1974. This was a moderate hit, nowhere near as big as Waterloo, but it deserves mention for how inescapably catchy it is, proving how ABBA had a penchant for just effortlessly tossing enough bubblegum pop that could melt the stoniest heart. Chris?
Yeah, this is like very early disco inspired for sure.
Yeah.
So it has kind of a disco thing. And it kind of sounds like they're selling sparkling water or bubble gum on TV.
Here's where the TV commercial comes in.
Yeah, but there's sensuality rendered in the vocals, expressively loving, just really bright and bubbly, and has some real Elton John flavor to it, and the kind of stuff that he was doing in the early '70s. And just remember. Elton John and Bernie Taupin co-wrote "Don't Go Breaking My Heart" a couple years after this. So then it's like, who's influencing who?
Right,
because
exactly.
Don't Go Breaking My Heart is pretty similar to Honey Honey.
And I'm pretty damn sure Benny and Bjorn were very much listening to Elton John in the early 1970s.
Yep,
You know, for
as
sure.
was everybody.
Yeah. Next, I Do from 1975. Who knew that slow jam, old school rhythm and blues was a core staple of ABBA's early sound? That's what we have here with this single that was a bigger hit than Honey Honey, but not quite big enough to make the world notice. It's an admirable effort in delving into this most American of music forms, but it wasn't a stylistic strong suit for ABBA as other genres would be in the near future. Chris?
It's a strange song because to me it combines R&B with English music hall.
Yeah.
And it has that kind of vaudevillian.
And that's probably what they were going for.
Yeah, it has kind of a vaudevillian feel to it, but it also has a hint of Spectre girl group going on with big huge song and harmonies galore. I mean, this is one of the first instances of them like overdubbing the shit out of the vocals.
Right.
Yeah, that they became definitely synonymous with by the end of their run.
Right. Next, SOS from 1975. When both John Lennon and Pete Townsend claim, as they did at the time of its release, that it's one of their all-time favorite songs, that's an island of opinion you want to be on. The worldwide hit that proved that ABBA weren't just a fluky pop group, SOS brilliantly merged a classical music influenced piano riff, a prog rock like Rick Wakeman-esque synthesizer swirl, and a song structure straight out of Phil Spector's early 1960s girl group sound and Brian Wilson's early Beach Boys period. It's pure magic, and it's aged beautifully throughout the years. Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Another wonderfully constructed pop song with acoustic guitar giving that backbone, as I said before, and then piano and electric keyboards giving it depth to the verses. Maybe the prettiest song about desperate post breakup longing ever.
Yeah,
and it's quite a little baroque little pop song, hence the Brian Wilson reference. Weirdly happy-go-lucky feel to the chorus and bridge, though. This is not really a happy song, but it sure sounds happy.
Yeah, that was ABBA's specialty. Musically happy and joyous, lyrically sad and melancholy. That's ABBA. It's it's a Scandinavian thing, I guess.
Yep.
Next, Mamma Mia from 1975. Can you get from perfect to perfecter? That's exactly what ABBA did on their second straight worldwide smash, although curiously not a big hit in the US at the time. From the weird Frank Zappa-esque cartoonish piano intro to the lush guitar riff that augments it to that gorgeous verse melody to that perfectly bouncy chorus melody to that immaculate bridge that's arguably catchier than anything else and any other part of the song. It's one hook after another. I'll say it again, one of the most perfect pop songs ever recorded. Oh yeah, and it's also the title of a long-running, internationally successful musical that's obviously based on the music of ABBA. It's also a gorgeous ode to breaking up and getting back together again, kind of the logical successor to SOS. Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Really ecstatic sounding song. I love the beginning of that song with that weird electric piano warble and the those notes at the beginning and then followed by the strings on the verses. Again, another tune that literally proves they were made for Broadway.
Yeah, really. And this one does too. Next, Fernando from 1976. This song continued ABBA's streak of one massive hit after another, and it also showed how deep the well of influence was for the songwriting team of Anderson Olveus. Musically, it's rooted in traditional Peruvian folk music, as inspired by Simon and Garfunkel's 1970 version of El Condor Pasa. Lyrically, Anderson originally wrote it in Swedish as a typical boy-girl love song for Annie Fried Lyngstad's 1975 solo album. Olveus completely rewrote the lyrics in English to tell the story of two veterans of the Mexican Revolution getting together and reminiscing about the trauma they suffered during the war. Of course, this being ABBA, the message is brought home with a soaring, yearning chorus that reaches for the heavens. Who said ABBA's lyrics weren't deep? Chris?
Yeah. our first blast of Latin rhythm from ABBA. Catchy
sure.
as hell, big fat sing along chorus, a genuine lighter lighter for the arenas, and a paean to, I'm assuming, Mexican fighters because it mentions the Rio Grande.
Yeah.
Uh, and so just, again, just the construction of this song and then how it leads into that wonderful chorus, which is just so affecting and so gorgeous, really good
Yeah.
stuff.
Next, Dancing Queen from 1976. Do I really need to describe this song? Who doesn't know it? Many artists and bands across the pop music spectrum tackled disco during this time, but few did it as well as ABBA, and that includes disco's original producers. I already mentioned the subtle beauty and sadness inherent in the lyrics. Musically, it's a lush, creamy, dreamy slice of mid-tempo disco nirvana with a beautiful song structure, a gorgeous melodic sweep, and a glistening piano passage that is, as usual, steeped in classical music. One of the greatest disco songs of all time? For sure. One of the greatest singles of the 1970s? Definitely. I'll go one step further. It's one of the greatest pop songs of the 20th century, period, regardless of era or genre. Chris?
Yeah, I'll agree on that one. Chances are your grandmother danced to Dancing Queen at more than one wedding. Uh, that's how pervasive that it was. And also, you gotta remember when we were freshmen at SU, that was kind of the beginning of the '70s revival.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we would go out drinking at a bar called Hungry Charlie's, and inevitably they would play that song, and everybody in the bar would stop doing what they were doing and either sing along to it or get up and dance to it. And there's just a pure joy, that just has this celebratory feel to it, and it's just like this it's a real anthem of freedom. And it's not just disco freedom, but true freedom. And like you said, there's that subtle hint of this being the fleeting moment, and the suggestion that this is as good as it's going to get for the 17-year-old. But yeah, just wonderful. I mean, that tremendous arrangement with the piano and the strings and the thumping drums, like the drum fill and the drum arrangement on this song is subtly great. And then so the vocal harmonies come in two flavors. There's the one on the verses, which are mysterious and alluring, and really kind of low register, and so Frida really kind of shines there. And then you get the chorus, which is just glorious and triumphant.
Yeah.
And that's where Agnes really Agnetha, or I think Agnetha, and that's where she really stands out. So awesome song.
Next, Knowing Me, Knowing You from 1977. There's a fine line between dramatic and emotional, and melodramatic and sentimental. This song brilliantly walks the line while veering into the former, a beautifully sad slice of gripping, domestic, drama-drenched pop rock. Yes, another worldwide smash, and it is one of the most powerful and poignant songs about divorce ever written. Chris?
Yeah, and it's this is a song that I can hear Diana Ross singing because
Yeah.
it's really pure R&B and just alluringly soulful, and really like the most melodic way of all time to say, "Yeah, dude, we're through."
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
More
Totally.
acoustic, more acoustic guitar splendor, which
And more underratedly powerful words, too, lyrics. Next,
Yeah.
The Name of the Game, 1977. Who knew ABBA could do reggae? And they do so in convincing fashion because they're not blatantly copying reggae. In fact, they're assimilating it into the overall ABBA sound. Lyrically, it's one of the group's most complex and clever songs. The narrator is about to fall in love as well as fall in love and be into a relationship, and is basically laying out the parameters of such a relationship to avoid the pitfalls and the heartbreak that are sure to come. Again, love is great, but it's bound to fail. a common ABBA theme. Chris?
Yeah, but here it's different. It's not the we're broken up and I'm desperate to get back in. It's the beginning. It's the unrequited love phase,
Yeah.
and it's that longing and it's like that excitement and but also those inevitable fears, and so it's like, you get that buzz in your stomach at the
Right.
beginning of a new relationship. I mean, I had it with my wife. I had it with a couple of my old girlfriends. I'm sure you had it with your wife, where you
Sure.
could feel like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, this is good,
Yeah.
and all
But
that. So
I
there's,
always detect a cynicism here. The name of the game, already the title of the
yeah,
song kind of like kind of tips the hat. It's like,
yeah.
there's something it's more contrived, like love and relationship. There's a contrived.
It's almost goofing on puppy love,
Yeah,
uh,
really is.
in a way. But even so, there's a sweetness and an innocence to the lyrics, too. It's like part sweet, part cynical. And it just kind of makes the harmonies more poignant because there is that giddiness to it.
Right. Next, Take a Chance on Me from 1978. Surprise! Another monster-sized worldwide hit that proved few pop artists could do disco as well as ABBA. But for this song, their take on disco is augmented by new wave styled synthesizers, something that would become more prevalent in ABBA's sound going forward, and a newfound confidence and bombast in Anni Fried Lyngstad's and Agnetha Faltskog's vocals, where they alternately serve the overall melody and play around with vocal phrasings. For once, ABBA's lyrical take on love is optimistic and buoyant, making this an unbeatable pop song. Chris?
Yeah, I love, again, another, the construction of these songs is just awesome. And, I love the harmonies at the beginning because you've got cross currents. You've got Agnetha and Anni Fried, sort of singing the words, the main words, but then you've got Benny and Bjorn underneath doing that. Take a chance, take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. Almost like the Johnny Cash beat.
Yeah.
Chugging along underneath it. So it's like the train running through the harmony, and it just makes for a really neat effect. And so again, here's texture, and so there's vocal texture. And again, you've got those subtle synth notes that are bolstering the main bass line. Maybe the best bass groove, one of the best bass grooves they ever came up with.
Right. Next, Summer Night City from 1978. ABBA had done sultry, lush, melancholy disco before. For this track, they did hot, sweaty, sexually charged, shake your booty disco, and it rivals the Bee Gees as far as dance floor scorchers go. It was just a moderate hit, but after the run they were on, they didn't need one for a while. Chris?
Now, this is some fucking disco.
Yeah.
Monster ass bass line, and Giorgio Moroder and Donna Summer had competition here. This is a glittering, shimmering production and a pure party song. And the lyrics kind of capture a utopian night out on the town. Here's one of the verses, quote, "When the night comes with the action, I just know it's time to go. Can't resist the strange attraction from that giant dynamo." And
Ooh, wonder what she's talking about there.
sounds like a penis to me. And tomorrow when it's dawning and the first birds start to sing in the pale light of the morning, nothing's worth remembering. It's a dream. It's out of reach. Scattered driftwood on a beach. So in other words, it's so exciting. It's so special. It feels like it didn't happen.
It was a dream. It could only be a dream. It's so good.
Either that or they were on like some really good drugs and they were on the come down by the morning.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yep.
Next, Chiquitita from 1979. ABBA go back to the Peruvian folk well for this gorgeous ballad of empathy where the narrator comforts a broken-hearted young woman. Anni Fried and Agnetha's harmonizing vocals are just sublime. Probably the best duo vocal performance they ever delivered. And of course, there's as always that killer, rousing, heroic chorus that brings everything together. Not even Benny Anderson's old-school music hall piano feels out of place. Another worldwide smash hit. It's also easily one of the group's best ever ballads, and that's saying something. Chris?
Yeah, more Latin love. A ballad for a downtrodden friend, offering hope for the hopeless. And it's kind of this weird thing where it's kind of a jaunty rhythm on the chorus, but it gets dramatic and pretty on the verses.
Right.
So it's this really heartfelt, almost like Broadway number. And then it goes into on the chorus, and it's got those twinkling piano notes and synths in the background, which they got really good and really subtle with how they mix piano with electric keys and synths, and mixing those two, and that in itself lent itself a real texture.
Next, Does Your Mother Know from 1979. ABBA rarely drifted into straight-up rock and roll, but they do so here with enthusiastic aplomb and a killer bass line and guitar riff, totally in keeping with the new wave rock style in fashion at the time. Although it was only a moderate hit, it's still irresistible pop rock of the highest order. Chris?
Yep. High-energy rocker. Really awesome warbling bass riff that opens that song. Wow, 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 wow. And then intercut by rhythm guitars that slash through as the beat stomps along, and it's really kind of a funny song lyrically. You've got the girl, you got the guy flirting with a girl who's probably underage. They're being very coy about this. Oh, gee, should we do this? You might be 15, but that's fuck it. Is basically what the tenor of the song.
Yeah. Anyway, next, the winner. No, sorry, Gimme, 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 A Man After Midnight from 1979. With its quirky synthesizer riff, thumping synth bass, and uncharacteristically sexually salacious lyrics, this is essentially ABBA's answer to Donna Summer's Hot Stuff. Bordering on electro disco, this was another massive hit that solidified their status as masters of dance music. Chris?
Yeah, total four on the floor disco here. The lyrics are kind of disturbing in the sense that it's an expression of loony loneliness. It's like the girls are stuck at home and hapless and are just praying for Prince Charming to drop into their laps, almost like they're inviting somebody to sneak in through their window and, get freaky deaky on them. So it's kind of it really is. It's kind of it's almost like describing a delusion. Awesome bridge of this song, which is just a pure bass thump. Sounds like the kind of thing Michael Jackson did on Off the Wall or in Thriller. Gotta wonder if ABBA had influence on Michael.
Well, this came out after Off the Wall. So.
Yeah, but it also but think about like the bridge to Wanna Be Starting Something and
sure.
Some of those other bridges on Thriller. You got to wonder if Michael had if some of the ABBA stuff rubbed off on Michael. You never know.
Next, The Winner Takes It All from 1980. By this point, both married couples and ABBA were struggling in their relationships. Benny and Anni Fried had already separated. Bjorn and Agnetha were about to. And that drama is laid to bear for all in this moving ballad, albeit with a weird mid-tempo disco beat, that is essentially a solo vocal showcase for Agnetha Faltskog. It's safe to interpret this as the sequel to Knowing Me, Knowing You, although it's nowhere near as good as that earlier song. This one is a little too maudlin for my taste. This is where the downfall of ABBA's quality and their quality output starts to go down a little bit. Nevertheless, it was another huge worldwide hit. Chris?
Yeah, I like this song. It's a really creative lament of a woman scorned. And it's very Broadway, but it's like schmaltzy Broadway. And, like you said, awesome vocal performance, from Agnetha and just real emotion. And kind of the irony here is this almost like her ex-husband getting his revenge because
I'm going to make you sing this song like Richard Thompson did to Linda.
Yeah, but because what happened, Agnetha said in interviews later on in the 80s and 90s that she was the winner of the divorce. She wasn't a loser.
Yeah.
So Benny is it's Bjorn that was married to Agnetha. Yeah. So this is like Bjorn whining about getting cleaned out and making his ex-wife sing it.
Yeah. There you go.
Pretty funny.
And finally, Super Trooper, Supapa, Chupapa from 1980. Their last real international hit, except in the US, sees them going back to that subtle melancholy in this buoyant piece of luscious disco pop. The narrator is telling us of how wonderful she's going to feel once she hits the stage, but that joy is just a temporary cover for the torment, the anguish, and the pain she feels from being separated from her lover, and possibly permanently. Chris?
Yep. And then the crux of the song is, you get that loneliness of being on the road, but what this song is describing is, she's practically blinded by the spotlights. Super Trooper refers to a type of spotlight that was used for concerts back then, but
Right.
she can barely make out the image of her lover in the audience. And she's describing her excitement about this. It's almost kind of like, it'd be better if I could see you fully, but at least I kind of saw you. And so there's a certain joy and relief of that. And so it's kind of, it really is kind of an ultimate being on the road for so long and being away from your loved ones kind of sucks kind of song.
Yeah. Agreed. All right, I've said a lot about the greatness of ABBA at the beginning of this episode in our parameter setter and our introduction, and within the 5 myths, our 5 myths section about ABBA. Chris, it's time for you to give us the big picture.
Yeah, the big picture. What can we say about ABBA's legacy and their influence, both musically and culturally, and why they still matter? So I've got 4 points here to make.
Okay.
Pop grandeur. This quartet really knew how to ham it up on stage with glitz and glamour and with maximal pop productions, and heaped layers and layers of sound atop one another. But they did it with a heartfelt sense of drama and romance and heartbreak and joy and desperation. This was pop that felt big and went big. In their wake, pop music in turn grew grander and moodier and sweeter, especially in the UK, where you can say bands like Wham, Ultravox, and even New Order embraced the sweeping composition style of ABBA. I mean, seriously, Bizarre Love Triangle might be the best ABBA song that ABBA never wrote. So that's a point to make. Second point, the costuming and the stage persona. They wore that garish, frilly, draping clothing shit that matched, and they smiled brightly and seemed to be having a real blast on stage. And so there's the joy of performance, even if their songs were kind of dark and kind of desperate. And so it must have been so much fun to go to their shows because they had so much fun. It's like they were teaching folks, to do that performance. And they had like a 16-piece band that sounded great. I mean, seriously, if you go on, if you just put like ABBA live into YouTube, you can get all these this concert footage, and they sounded awesome. I mean, especially Benny Andersson. That guy was a talented keyboardist. Like he could basically capture what he was doing on record live, which is pretty amazing. And so and the thing is, they only really did 100, like, in the life of the band. They didn't tour that much. They only did like 150 shows, and then if you include like festival sets, they only did like 200 shows. But they really made them count because, you know, when they do their shows and they do their TV appearances, they're just having so much fun. And I really think they certainly helped continental European bands loosen up. I mean, you know, they certainly weren't Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
Third point is craftsmanship.
Yes.
They didn't, like I said, they didn't play that many shows, so they focused acutely on mastering the studio, and they raised the bar for other bands to layer and texture and overdub their productions just as well as ABBA. Very hard to do. Very hard to do. Very few bands recorded, engineered, mixed, and mastered music this lush, this sonically pleasing, and this free. Their influence was definitely huge in Sweden, where, as I said before, you know, you have folks like Max Martin and even, I think, AHA. They might have been Norway, but
they were Norway.
Yeah, but yeah, close enough. And an artist like Robin, you know, that adopted that crispness, that structural perfection, and especially that sneaky pathos that ABBA embedded into their otherwise sunny tunes. And then finally, I think that their legacy is that there is a communal joy of listening to and sharing music together. ABBA, you know, these singles that we went over make them one of the more communal bands of all time. I mean, play Dancing Queen at a club or a bar, and people or a wedding, and people inevitably sing and dance and laugh. ABBA's greatest hits collection, Gold, when it was released in '92, became a huge international hit after its release in 1992. It's 6 times platinum in the States, and I believe overall it sold about 30 million copies in the last 33 years. When, like I said before, when Art and I were in college, ABBA was in the midst of a full-blown revival, and their songs were everywhere. And Gold was a big seller. You know, I mean, pretty much everybody I knew except me had that album. Right. I think you had that album, didn't you?
No, I did not.
Oh, you did not? Okay.
I did not.
But a lot of people had ABBA Gold. And that's really carried over into this generation, where the youngins now, and this is something that they've been working on for the last 10 years, they get to enjoy digital avatars of the band perform in concert and enjoy this music perhaps for the first time. So ABBA lives digitally. And so Gen Z...
So will Kiss very soon.
Yeah, Kiss has been working on that. But ABBA did it first. They've been doing it since like 2019, I think.
Yeah.
You know, they did it pretty early. So so there's just going to be a timelessness. So long as there's so much joy and communal wonder to be had, ABBA will never die. Arturo, final thoughts.
Well said, Chris. I have nothing much really to say. I'm a latecomer to the music of ABBA, and really, I've always known about them. I mean, it's musical DNA for me. But as far as really getting into them and appreciating them, that didn't come till I got older, and I'm glad I did. I mean, they were arguably the greatest pop group of the 1970s. You can make that argument. You really can.
Yeah, you know? As far as pure pop, I mean, yeah, for sure. Yeah. You know, they were right there because a lot of the pop, I mean, a lot of the greatest pop purveyors of the 70s were like singer-songwriters. You know, the soft rock people of the early 70s, and like Joni Mitchell, and you know, and folks like that. But as far as bands, yeah, I think ABBA is basically right there.
For sure.
For sure. Although I guess you could make an argument for Casey and the Sunshine Band.
They didn't have as many hits as ABBA.
And they didn't have as many hits as ABBA, but you can make an argument. But yeah, ABBA's an all-time great. They deserve their props. Benny and Bjorn were a tremendous songwriting and production duo, and Agnetha and Ani Fried were an awesome duo, taking on those harmonies. So more power to the Swedes. And with that, we come to the end of this episode, and we encourage you to join our fabulous Facebook community, our Curmudgeonly community on Facebook, where Arturo posts a lot of good stuff. We get a lot of good engagement, And, it's just a chance to just really kind of just celebrate this music, talk about it, and be excited about it. It's invite only, but chances are we'll let you in. Facebook.com/group/curmudgeonrock. Join us there. Send us some fan mail. We want to hear some ABBA love. And, we want some ideas for how we can further deify ABBA via our content. So send us that mail at curmudgeonrock@gmail.com. And then finally, you'll be able to listen to every song that we talked about in this ABBA episode in our Spotify playlist that we post for every episode. Go to our episode description, wherever you're getting this podcast through, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or whatever. In the episode description, there will be a link that will take you to the Spotify playlist, and you can listen to all of these songs. I've listened to that playlist over and over again this week, and it is incredible. I love it. It's probably my favorite playlist that I've put together on this podcast. So check that out, and hey, yo, dig it!